Sometimes we reach a point in life where nothing is obviously wrong, and yet everything feels off. What used to make sense has slowly lost its weight. You're still moving, you're still functioning, you're still doing what you have always done, but it feels heavier now, more demanding of your effort. It's as if you are running on autopilot and the autopilot no longer knows where it's going. That's usually when people say, I feel lost. And when that feeling shows up, most of us react in the same way. We try to take control. We make plans. We gather more information. We try to optimize ourselves into some sense of clarity, right? If I can just think this through properly, or if I can just find the right framework, the right next step, then I'll be fine. But this is where we go wrong. Because the feeling of being lost doesn't come from a lack of control. It comes from believing that we can regain control in the first place. The truth is, you were never in control. Life is already moving. It's always moving. Change is already happening. And there is, unfortunately, no amount of force or urgency or overthinking that will stop the movement. Trying to control it is a bit like trying to swim by fighting the water. You are going to exhaust yourself and eventually you will sink. What actually helps is learning how to float, learning your shape and your capacity and the way you like being in the water. And one way to begin understanding your shape is to return to something very fundamental. Who are you and what actually is important to you? When I was living on the American West Coast, I had built a full life there. Nearly a decade of work, relationships, identity, and a sense of belonging. And then slowly, I felt something was shifting. I didn't panic at first, and I could have ignored it. I could have told myself that staying made more sense, at least on paper. But underneath everything else, one thing became incredibly clear to me. My family back home mattered more. Not as an idea or not as a value I liked, but as something I could feel pulling at me consistently, unmistakably. And when I did go ahead and leave, it did come with enormous cost. Ultimately, my marriage didn't work out. My sense of self in that country, the life I had worked hard to build. And yet, once that value was clear to me, the decision itself was not dramatic. It was certainly painful, complicated for sure, but not confusing. Because I felt I was navigating after a North Star. And that's the thing about values. When you do live out of alignment with them, they are not going to disappear. They will show up as discomfort, as frustration, and as a sense of meaning slowly evaporating out of your life. And often we only start paying attention once that discomfort becomes annoying, irritating enough, painful enough. And the paradox is this: most of the time you already know what matters to you. You just haven't articulated it yet. And without that articulation, your own intuition is hard to find, hard to trust, because everything feels blurry. Every decision feels heavy. So if you are sitting there right now feeling unmoored, not in crisis, not in chaos, but just incredibly unsure of where it is you are heading, here is what I want to tell you. You do not need to make a big decision right now. You don't need to act faster. And you cannot think your way into clarity. The first step is simpler and also harder in the same way than that. It is to ask, what actually matters to me in this part of my life? Because when your values become clearer, direction will follow. Your no will become easier to say out loud. Your intuition will become easier to trust, and decisions will stop feeling like emergencies. I write about this, about values, identity, and finding your internal compass on my Substack. It's called Dark Matter, and I explore these questions more deeply in my podcast, Dancing in the Dark. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I'm here to help you hear yourself more clearly. Because I think the real tragedy of a life is not knowing what to do, but it is when you are living out of alignment with what you already know is true. Thanks for listening.